Okay, so we have our skirt back drawn, we have our waistband. I'm going to select this and I'm going to add a gradient fill. It's looking all wonky here because I have a fill on my seam allowance line, I think. Yeah. So I'm going to ungroup this so I can select just that. And I don't want to fill on that, so that's why that was all wonky. Next, I'm going to draw the lining skirt on top of this. So I'm going to use my pen tool. I'm going to draw it a little bit away from the outer edge. And then at center front, I'm clicking, holding shift as I pull those handles out. That is a very tiny line. Okay, so let's get our stroke weight. And then up here, I'm going to stack this waistband on top, so this again doesn't need to be perfect. But I do want this to be symmetric, so I will click the reflect tool, option, click center front and copy. And then we have to join, of course. I might actually group these together and then go into isolation mode to make it easier for me to join. Direct select, and I'm going to average and join. And I'll do the same at the top. Select both, average, and join. Okay. Then here I can add, maybe it's a white fill. And then I am going to bring that to front. Finally, I'm going to do the front of the skirt. So I'm going to select the back and I'm going to copy, paste in front, and then I'm going to arrange this to be all the way to the front. I am going to adjust this so that this is the front of the skirt. I'm going to make it come down a little bit lower than the, let's zoom in. I've got 2 anchor points here. I'm going to get rid of one of them. There we go. I'm going to adjust that so I'll be able to see the difference in my hems. Let's zoom out. Okay. Next, we can add some fold and drag lines. So I'm going to do no fill. I'm going to do a crazy color, and I'll use my pencil tool to start drawing in some of these. Fold and drag lines. And here. Sometimes when they're longer, I like to use my pen tool, because I can really control how those look. Okay. This is the front. Yes. Okay, so then we will select same stroke color. And again, we will see. Oops, I forgot to change the stroke color. I think maybe we'll do a smaller line weight and then we'll change that to black. Okay, so we have that. And again, I want to make sure this sits on top. Oops. Okay. Oh, how annoying. Select same stroke color, change that to black. I'm going to group these as well. What just happened? Okay. Next. Okay, so now we're going to start making this sheer. I'm selecting only the front, not any of the folder drag lines. And instead of, so you could change the opacity up here, which is the main opacity, right? The thing that does is it changes the opacity of the fill and the stroke. I just want to change the opacity of the fill, and I want that stroke to stay a solid black line. So I'm going to Command Z. And the way you can change just the fill is over here, the appearance panel. It's this little sun. And this will show you sometimes too when there's something weird going on and you can't figure out. If you go over to the appearance panel, sometimes this will give you a clue. So here you have the stroke is black and a 0.75, the fill is gradient, and the opacity is default, which is 100. I'm going to double click, actually let me show you. So you can change the opacity of just the stroke. Oops, you can change the opacity, that's what I want to do, of just the fill. And this is the opacity of everything. So I'm going to do just the fill opacity by double clicking. And then you can decide. So then as you can see, now you can see through. That looks good. I'll leave it at that. So you could leave it like this. You may not even want to use a gradient, which is fine. But you can use the gradient to your advantage. As you can see over here, it kind of gives shadows and highlights. So we're going to go, we've selected our front. We're going to go to the gradient panel. And I'm going to play around with this. The easiest way to do this is if you hold Option, and again, this isn't on the handout, I should add it, but it's not. So you may want to write this down. You hold Option. It's not doing it on here. Let's see. There we go. Hold Option and you just drag out and it'll drag the same thing out. So I'm going to do alternating black and white. Maybe I'll stop there. And then you can adjust. And again, that's just going to automatically give you some highlights. If you wanted to change the white to like a gray, you could do that. Just double click the swatch. And you could do that if the white's too much for you. And then if you wanted to go even further, so on this one, I've added even more shadows to the waistband here to make it even more dimensional, but you don't necessarily have to do that. And that is sheer. And then you would make sure, you know, obviously I would need a top stitch line here, an edge stitch baby hem, things like that. So make sure to add that. But as I was saying before with tops, so if you do the easy way that I normally draw things, just pretend, and then you draw your sleeve in the other, again, lazy way that I do it, which there's nothing wrong with it because time is money. Arrange that, send it back, and then let's say I definitely need a stroke on these, obviously. And then you start making things sheer, which we can do that in the opacity. So we'll do that, 50, enter. So then you'll start to obviously see, you can't really do that, right? So in that case, when you're building a top or dress with that's sheer, you may need to, so I've just selected this line, I'm in direct select, and then you could do copy, paste in front, or Command C, Command F, and then you would start building your sleeve from there. That way, it's still a separate closed shape, but it's perfectly aligned and you won't get any overlap. And so again, it'd still be easy to edit. So if all of a sudden you need super long sleeves, you could do that and then easily reflect. This armhole is not the same as that armhole, which is why, yeah. Okay, so that's sheer, and let's